This is the Chappell Real Estate Show, episode number 11.
Welcome to the Chappell Real Estate Show, your source for the latest real estate information so you can buy, sell, and invest with the best in Texas. Whether you're a first-time buyer, a current homeowner, or a seasoned investor, you've come to the right place. We're here to simplify all things real estate so you can achieve your goals of property ownership with your hosts, Daniel and Roger Chappell.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for tuning into the Chappell Real Estate Show, your source for the latest real estate information so that you can learn how to buy, sell, and invest with the best. I'm your host, Daniel Chappell.
And I'm your co-host, Roger Chappell. So today we've got a very special guest for you, somebody that's a builder in the business, Mr. J. Garrett. He is the owner and I guess CEO of, is it Garrett Solutions?
Garrett Signature Homes.
Garrett Signature Homes. I've had the pleasure of working with Garrett on a couple of, Jay on a couple of different deals, and it's just fascinating to listen to what he's got to say. So I think our listeners are in for a big treat today.
So, Jay, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How long you've been in the business? What got you into the business? And tell us how many homes you've bought and sold.
Well, I don't really buy, I build. But I've been in since 2011, been building houses. So did construction before that, was a partner in Athens Park Homes. In Athens, we built manufactured homes. So, I went from building 5 homes a day to building, taking 6 months to build a house. So a little bit different, little change of gears, but adapted. We sold Athens Park Homes to a major home manufacturer, Champion Homes. So then I figured, man, give a shot at building houses.
Very cool. Very cool. So how many homes would you say that you've built and sold then?
Since then, I probably around 80. So we started out, built a couple of spec houses to try to, get my feet wet. And then we transformed into just being a custom builder. So right now I don't have any spec houses, just all custom. I kind of went in it thinking that, I wanted to be a little bit different than the standard builder. So we're 100% custom. We can change any floor plan, modify anything, kind of do whatever the customer really wants. And just try to do every house like I would do it if I was going to live there.
Awesome. That's great. Oh man, especially nowadays where you're talking most builders have shifted to a little bit more of a spec build. There's fewer and fewer custom builders out there. So I'm sure your services are really, really needed and appreciated at a time like right now. So what has your education been in terms of, I know you said you came from another builder before you got into custom building yourself, but as far as your education is concerned, what did you have to go through to be able to construct and build homes?
Well, in Texas, I didn't really have an education. My grandfather was a home builder. My dad was a home builder. So when I was a kid, I was around, a home builder all the time. Never really imagined myself getting in that industry. I was always a car guy. I had a passion for cars when I was a teenager and got in the car business. And then it just kind of evolved into doing construction. So just kind of weird the way I fell into being a home builder. I guess, some things are in your blood.
Yeah.
So I always think it's fun to kind of take it's kind of like an old car. You take an old car and you kind of get a vision for it. And then you build that car to your vision. And I see a lot, and I can, picture a floor plan in my mind and a house in my mind on that lot, and then you build it. So it's kind of the same way. It's kind of like an art form. I'm not a very artistic person as far as, drawing or that, that aspect of it, but it is kind of an art form, being able to have a vision in your mind and making it happen.
Absolutely. Not only that, but making your client's vision come true.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And going over that vision with them and creating that, the ability to kind of show them what you're thinking and listening to them and getting an idea of what they want. So, there's a lot of collaboration that goes into that. And I've got a personality defect. I'm brutally honest. So, you know, sometimes that's a detriment, but, you know, a lot of my clients, you know, they, you know, they're from different parts of the country and they have different things in different parts of the country. I had a client one time that, you know, I'm a real positive guy. And I had a client that asked me, you know, he wanted lightning rods on his house, and he wanted all this weird stuff that, you know, he's from New York. And I'm like, no, we don't do that here. And you don't need it. We do it, you know, ground block, you know, I was just like, no, on all this crazy stuff. And then when I met with him and his wife, you know, and they had looked at a bunch of my houses, and I said, hey man, I want you to know, I'm not a negative guy. I'm just, you know, I'm just telling you no on all this stuff, because you don't need all this stuff. He goes, oh no, that's why we hired you. We knew, you know, we want to be told what, you know, what goes on. And, you know, so many times you walk in a house that, you know, you see houses for sale and you just see all this stupid stuff and you go, why? People just waste money on these stupid ideas. So I try to steer my, you know, it's their house. I'll do whatever they want, but I try to steer them in a direction of, you know, you think that you're building your forever house, but you're really only going to be here about 7 or 8 years. So let's try to build this for you. And let's also try to build this for the next person that's going to live here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, thanks for the introduction. That's great to give a little bit of background and let our listeners understand where you come from and how you got into this business, to see what kind of value you're going to bring to them today. So let's kind of take a shift really quick and dive into the Chappell chunk. So Dad, what is today's Chappell chunk?
So the best thing, and I actually stole this from Garrett about 2 minutes ago, is very simple. The buyers need to know what they want. So, Jay, I couldn't agree with you more. We've had conversations about this in the past, where the buyers come in and they, you know, the common phrase is all buyers are liars. I disagree with that. I think buyers think they know what they want until they find what they want. So they have in their mind, okay, I want 2,500 square foot house on this and that and the other, until they find, you know, the 4,300 square foot house sitting on 14 acres in the middle of nowhere. So it's never the exact vision they have. It's always completely different. But when you're doing a custom home, you really do need to know what you want. So take the time, figure it out before you actually draw up the plans, because once those plans are drawn up and the material starts getting ordered, that's the end of the day. That's what you're getting now. So you really do need to understand and know what you want before you actually proceed with it.
Definitely. That is a great tip. So moving into the episode, let's go ahead and start talking about what the build process looks like. So, Jay, what we kind of like to do is walk people through the process as if they were, you know, going through the build process themselves. So let's assume we're working with a client. They've just gotten started into the process and they've located a lot that they're interested in. So what is the next step for them to building the home?
Well, they need to start out with a floor plan. You know, say on a custom home, they've got their lot. We need to look at a floor plan, and then we also need to look at doing a site plan where we can determine where their house is going to go, where their septic's going to go. If it needs a well, maybe it has a water meter, but if it needs a well, where the well's going to go. And if we're going to do a well house, try to get the layout, best place for the house, you know, where it's not in a low spot, on a high spot, and then start with the floor plan design. Somebody comes to me, we hook them up with our designer, try to get an idea of what they're looking for, because we've built a lot of houses, not just houses that are, you know, our stock plans on our website. So we may have something that fits their needs, and then maybe we can move a wall, you know, stretch it, make it fit for them. And then we flip them over to a finance company, get the interim financing. And we've got 2 finance companies that we work a lot with, Thrive Mortgage and our bank. And Thrive Mortgage is pretty unique. They've got a package that a program where you can, if you have a house and you've got a lot of equity in your house, a lot of people think, well, you know, I've got, you know, 100,000 in equity, but I can't afford to, you know, to put another 100,000 down on a house right now. They've got a program where you can keep your house and they take that equity into account when they're doing your interim financing loan. And then once you move into your new house, they give you 6 months to sell your old house. So very unique program. It works really well for the people that have the equity in the house, but not, the 20% to put down on on an interim financing construction loan.
Yeah.
So Jay, real quick, you mentioned that you work with 2 lenders, and to be honest, I didn't know this until I started working with you, and then I understood why the process is the way it is. So, excuse me, if I came to you and I've got my own lender, but it's not either Thrive or our bank, what does that do for you as the builder, as far as lending and the financing side of that is concerned?
Well, a lot of people don't understand interim construction financing. So even a lot of realtors don't have any idea what it is. So basically it's, the person getting a loan, to finance the house. And the reason any other bank, and we're signed up with other banks as well for interim construction. Those are just our 2 preferred lenders. But if they have their own bank and they wanted us to do it right now, it just, we're going to steer you to our bank or Thrive, because it's a much easier process for us. If you wanted to use your own lender, it would require me to fill out, hours worth of paperwork to get signed up on their program. So they have all this paperwork. Basically it's like me getting a loan as well as the client getting a loan, because they have to sign me up as one of their, preferred, I've got to be a vendor for them. So I've got to go through the whole approval process as well. And we're just too busy right now to have time to be able to, fill out all that paperwork.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, when you and I first started talking about that, I too was ignorant of that process. I mean, I've sold a bunch of homes, and this is the first time that I've done a custom home like this, where they actually had to get interim financing, and I didn't understand the process either. So I appreciate you walking me through all of that, because it was an education, not just for me, but for my buyers as well. But now that we've got all that figured out, now I know exactly what to do. And believe it or not, it makes it much easier to sell your product when I'm talking with folks. So again, thank you for that.
We've got several of your clients, Roger. I think you've got clients at our bank and at Thrive. So I think we kind of hit, and it's a good deal for, it works. Both of those banks are a little bit different, and they work for the majority of people out there, the combination of those 2 financing sources.
Yeah, that's correct. So you already mentioned the designing aspect of it. So now we've got the loan approved, I guess. So basically what people don't understand is that interim financing means there are 2 separate closings. The first closing is on the construction loan itself. The second closing is after the home is completed and you actually move into the home. But there's a whole lot that goes on in the meantime. And just without getting too deep into the loan process, I just want people to understand that the construction loan is an interest-only loan. So during the time that the house is being built, you're paying only the interest on the money that is borrowed, not on the entire amount, just on what's borrowed. So if the builder goes in and pulls $100,000, then you're paying the interest on $100,000, not on the complete $500,000 you may have borrowed. Now, with all of that said, now we've got the loan approved and we're ready to start construction of the house. You mentioned before that they've already gone to a design team. So what happens now? Is it now when we do the foundation, or what's the process in that now?
Yeah, once the loan is closed, you have to go close the interim loan at a title company and do all of the paperwork. And they will provide us with a draw form. So that'll have everything. I mean, there's about 60 items listed on draw forms. Some banks have their own draw forms. So then the first thing is we start on the dirt work, get it ready, get the forms up, get the rough plumbing in, and then get the steel in, and then get the foundation poured. And that's the first, couple of steps of that process. It's not as easy as just going out there and putting some boards on and pouring concrete, because all of your rough plumbing has to be in. So there's quite a lot that gets done before the foundation gets poured. And that whole process takes minimum, 30 days to do, to get your, with the rough plumbing, scheduling the plumber, Then you have to get the electrician out there to put the floor plugs in and run the power, runs, the chases for your islands and all that stuff, and put your UFO ground block in for your electric. So you've got to have a plumber and electrician out there. The plumber comes out there and runs all of your sewer lines, and then also the water lines that go to like your island and all your places that they can't get to. And then you put all your rough steel in there. Electrician comes out, and the plumber has to come out and remeasure, because all of those pipes that you don't see, they go inside your walls. So the plumber has got to be spot on their measurements when the forms are up, to make sure all of those vent pipes for your toilet, all of your sinks, all that stuff goes inside of the walls. So it's really a tough job for the plumbers, because I mean, they can't be a quarter of an inch off, because the wall sits right on top of where their pipes go. So that's kind of the first process, is that foundation.
I think too, this is one of the times, a lot of buyers, they get really anxious in this time frame, because they know that they've submitted all their documents to the lender. They're ready to sign and rock and roll. They think everything is great. Then they drive out to the site, and there's been nothing done. It's just leveled. I mean, some trees may have been taken out, but that's it. Nothing has happened. And then all of a sudden they have this form that's going up, and they're like, okay, so where's the concrete? They don't realize that, like you just said, the plumbing and the electrical and all that goes actually in the foundation, and how precise those measurements have to be. Because, electrical, I think maybe they can miss it off just a little bit, but that plumbing cannot. I mean, absolutely, it has to be spot on for exactly what you're saying. Now, when it comes to electrical, a lot of that goes through the walls and everything, but still, they've got to have their stuff together. So I think this is the part of the process that seems like it takes the longest. But once that foundation is completed, it seems like all of a sudden, boom, there's a house. You want to walk us through the next part of this?
Absolutely. Yeah. Once you get that foundation, and it does take time, because you're not only scheduling with the foundation, you've got to schedule your plumber. You've got to schedule your electrician. You've got to schedule your concrete guy. Then for concrete, you've got to schedule your pump. You've got to schedule your concrete, and all of those, and you have to have great weather. So all of those things combined, I mean, just it is absolutely insane. And especially with the construction right now, you may have everything lined up, and the concrete company calls the day before and they say, hey, we're out of concrete. We're out of cement, the cement mix. And right now we're starting to see a little bit of a cement shortage, thanks to COVID. So, there's so many different aspects that go into having to pour that foundation. And, it's just such a relief when you get that foundation poured in. The foundation is actually, that's 20% of the house right there is your foundation. So once you get that done, it rolls pretty good after that. You get the framing, you get your first framing drop scheduled, you get your framers scheduled, and you get that, then the walls start going up. And then, once you get your walls up, you do your ceiling joist, your roof rafters, then you get the decking on, you get your cornice on, and you're really rolling from that point. You start to see a house going up. So that's when it really starts to rock and roll. And then after after you get the cornice and the decking up, you can schedule your plumber to come back for your stack out. And what that means is they come in and they start putting all of where your shower heads are going to go, your faucets are going to go, all of your plumbing that goes, in the framing. And you get the stack out done, and you get your mechanical done. Your AC people come in, start running the AC lines, vent fans for the bathrooms. They get all that going, and then your electrician comes in and starts doing all his rough wiring. So that's that's when you're really rolling right there.
Yeah, man. So you've tapped into quite a few different areas. We already kind of talked about the lending aspect of things, but I'm curious, with so many different phases of construction, how do you go about determining what the budget is going to be for each of these phases as you kind of move your way into the final stages of the home?
Well, the budget's done, way early on in the process. So, you take the plan normally, and you can send a plan out to your subs and get numbers on it. Now, in this environment, it is changing drastically. I mean, COVID has really changed our whole industry. All the shortages, cost, it's supply and demand. So, we've got a large building demand, and with factories shutting down, with not being able to, have 100% workforce, it's really affecting our supply chain. So we took a house that would take, 5 to 6 months to build, is taking, 10 months to build. You just never know what the next shortage is going to be. So, I mean, we've had it from breakers to, junction boxes, cement shortage. I mean, I don't know if you guys have noticed by that. I mean, we're having a hard time buying diesel. So, at a gas station, so we're having, fuel shortages right now. It's just insane. It's crazy. Crazy times.
And that's something you wouldn't even really think about. But yeah, I mean, logistically, you got to have the fuel to get stuff places. So
absolutely. Yeah. Lumber shortages. I mean, OSB is, $38 a sheet right now. It was $8 a year ago. So it's just,
wow.
It's just crazy.
For the listener, Jay, can you explain what OSB is?
It's oriented strand board. It's basically like we use it like a plywood, like we would plywood. Comes in 4x8 sheets. It's used for the sheathing on the house and the roof deck.
Gotcha. So it's not your standard plywood. This is something a little bit different than plywood, correct?
Yes, it's a little bit different than plywood.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
but
that gives our listeners a little bit of an idea.
Yeah. At one point in plywood, it was a less expensive option for plywood because plywood was really expensive. So what they and then actually recently we did a house. We're building 2 houses on Lake LBJ, and there was a point where plywood was actually cheaper than OSB. So we decked one of the houses with 1/2-inch plywood instead of OSB because of the plywood was cheaper.
Yeah. Are there different budgets for interior landscaping and those types of things? So kind of wanted to break up the budget into what different sections, I guess, and how you determine those budgets.
Oh yeah, as far as budget goes, and we're a little bit different type of builder. We do everything is cost plus. So we line item price everything. So every single item is line item priced on our bid sheet. So we've got a budget for every single thing, from the foundation to the electrical, plumbing, AC, the tile, your landscaping, everything, granite. So we have a budget for every single line item. So
okay, so that kind of leads me into the next question is how, when you're, obviously the build process takes some time. So when you're getting under contract or when you're beginning the build process, how do you know how much that price could potentially change by the time you get to the closing table? As you mentioned, with supply and demand and shortages and different supplies and things of that nature, costs are fluctuating very frequently. So when you're getting the process started, how do you know more or less how much the home could increase in value, or not necessarily value, but what it's going to cost you at the closing table?
Well, we have a budget we start with, and those are prices at that time. And then as we go, they could change. We will have to do a couple of change orders depending on what the customer wants. But then there's things we can't control, like the lumber cost, which is, extremely volatile right now. So once we do your lumber packages, we just have to, make an adjustment on that. Could go, recently it's gone up. It could possibly go down. We've had it where, we bid a house out, and at the end of the deal, the customer, we're, $10,000-$11,000 short. So we can add the landscaping. We don't have to close on the exact amount. We don't have to draw the exact amount that they borrow for. So once they convert their final loan, go to the, converting to their 30-year fixed loan.
Gotcha. Okay.
So Jay, throughout the building process, I know that there are several inspections that take place. So if you would kind of walk us through some of those inspections and at what point they actually occur.
Well, there's different, every city that you build in has different different ways that they do it. So there's normally a foundation pre-pour inspection. There is we call it a FEMP, so framing, electrical, mechanical, and plumbing inspection that happens. Some cities require a insulation inspection. So after you insulate, they inspect, and then some have a drywall inspection. So after you insulate, then you get the drywall up, then they come and inspect that. And then you've got your final inspection. Some people have the air pressure inspections where they come and they test your house with the air to make sure no air is leaking. So every municipality is a little bit different. If you're building out in the county, there's a lot less inspections. So, we have to have like out in Williamson County and Mesa Vista, where we're building a lot now. The only inspection we have to have out there is the septic inspection. So it just varies depending on where you're building.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So let me ask you this. Do you welcome third-party inspections once the house is completed?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can do a third-party inspection if our customer wants to inspection, and they can also get with an inspection company, and they'll do inspections as we go through the build process. So they can do a framing inspection, electrical inspection, plumbing, mechanical. There's independent inspectors out there that do those inspections as well.
So if an inspection turns up some deficiencies in various areas, does the buyer just simply turn that inspection report over to you or your construction manager, or how does that work?
Yes, sir. They just email it over to us, and it gets taken care of. Pretty, very simple process.
So for our listeners, and I can't drive this home enough because I've heard many conversations about this. When it comes to third-party inspections, I always recommend to my buyers that they have this done so that, and usually, a lot of builders will offer a 1-year warranty, bumper to bumper. It doesn't matter what goes wrong in that first year. Most builders will take care of that. So typically I tell my buyers throughout the process, and it depends on where the house is too. So if you have a house that's in the city limits and it's going through several different inspections, it's probably not worth it to do the inspection along the way. Probably worth it to just do it at the 10-month interval. However, when a house is actually built in the county, especially Williamson County, and like you, I know the only inspection they require in the county is on the septic, nothing else. So I recommend to my buyers that once the house is done, is to go ahead and have it inspected and then turn that over to the builder so they can correct any deficiencies. And it's never ceased to amaze me how many things get discovered that, had it not been for that inspection, would have never been discovered. And a lot of times the builder is not happy with what they see, because typically it means that a subcontractor somewhere either tried to take a shortcut, or maybe we all make mistakes on occasion. Sometimes it's just a mistake that pops up, or sometimes the material is deficient. Like I remember on one of the windows was off. I don't remember exactly how it was off, but the deficiency was the window itself, and it was still installed. So those kind of things, the third-party inspection will turn those up. And to me, it's always a telltale sign with the builder as to whether or not how they'll accept those inspections. So your answer is spot on with what I expect with the builders that I recommend and refer to my clients. So I appreciate that answer. That was really good.
Yeah, it never hurts to have another set of eyes on a project. We're there looking at the project as you go through the whole thing. And then, there could easily be something that you just missed. So it always helps to have another set of eyes on it. I've got no problem with getting those inspections. And sometimes inspectors, they'll write up every little thing that's really nothing. But yeah, absolutely. It's always good to have a little bit of somebody checking on stuff just in case you miss something.
Yep, I agree.
Absolutely.
I agree. It speaks to the reputation too of the builder. So, when you're able to do that and you get it done, that just speaks volumes for the quality of product that you are producing and the pride that's behind the work as well. So, I think buyers can see some true value in that.
Yeah, we had a client from Pennsylvania that we built. It was actually a spec house, and they came in and they did an inspection, and they had a bad, I think they were maybe had a house in Ohio previously, and they just had a, it was just a terrible house. And they came down here and they fell in love with the house. We made an offer, we accepted, they do the inspection report, and the inspector had about, 15 things on the list. And, and she was like almost in tears, like, oh my God, we have another house that's got all these issues. What does this mean? Is this just a bad house? And the inspector laughed and he said, no, this is one of the better built houses we see. We can tell that, all the subs took pride in their work. This is nothing. There's, it's just minor stuff. Don't worry about it.
They'll have this done in 15 minutes. It's all good.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
right, Danny, we got to wrap it up.
Yeah, no, I saw. Well, Jay, I think that pretty much covers everything that we had written down. Do you have any kind of closing thoughts before we get into our final 5 questions for our listeners to get to know you?
Yeah, well, just one thing, that we do, a lot of builders don't do it. And it really kind of didn't come into under a microscope until this recent cold spell, is all of our houses that we build have spray foam insulation. So that means with a typical home with fiberglass insulation, the insulation in the attic goes right on top of the ceiling, to try to keep all the air in your, right in your house. With spray foam, they spray foam under the roof. So the attic, the ceiling of your house has no insulation on it. It's all on the underside of the roof. Well, that really came into play with this cold spell because of all the water lines that are run up, in the ceiling that are, basically exposed to elements when you get to the kind of cold spell we had. So I had several customers just out of the blue, 3 customers one day texted me and said, thank you very much for, building our house with spray foam, because our neighbors' houses are falling apart and we have 0 issues.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I imagine that made a huge difference, especially, I don't know, I haven't heard too many cases in the Austin area, but I know in Houston, so many houses that had leaks spring in the attic, and, it's not something that is standard in our area or that we ever really expect to need, but I'm sure like you said, your clients appreciated having it. So,
oh yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and move into our get to know you questions. So we've got a few questions. I don't think you've heard them before. So hopefully we don't catch you off guard too much. But Jay, what was the first concert that you ever saw?
First concert I ever saw, Kiss, 1986.
Nice. That was probably a pretty cool show.
It was really awesome. Absolutely.
Awesome. What is your favorite hobby or hobbies?
I enjoy ATVing. So do a lot of, I've got several 4-wheelers and 2 side-by-sides.
That's pretty cool. Who is the most memorable person that you've ever met?
The most memorable person I've ever met. Man, that's a tough one. Man, I'm trying to think.
Besides me, of course.
Man, I have to think about that.
This one
That's
caught
an
me off
extremely
guard
tough
too.
question. Yeah, let's follow back up on that. Let me think about it for a second. Go to the next one.
Okay, circle back. So what is the most exotic place that you've ever visited?
Bora Bora.
Bora Bora. How was that?
Been there twice. Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really cool. They got a good deal. The scuba diving's good. Fishing is great. Caught a blue marlin one time there. And I was scuba diving one time there. And I'm looking at all the fish, and there was this eel coming out. Really cool. Moray eel. And I was kind of looking at that, and all of a sudden it just got dark. And I'm like, what the heck? I'm 30 feet underwater, and it just gets, and I look up, and there's this huge ray right on top of me. Just, I'm, a foot from me, just checking out what I'm doing. Wow. It's really cool. It's a very cool island. So
that sounds like an awesome experience. And what is the best way for our listeners to reach you, Jay?
Cell phone, 512-626-0208. Give me a call anytime.
And I can attest to that. So the way Jay and I met is I was actually looking at some lots for one of my clients, and I drove out through the neighborhood, and I'm looking around and I see all these different signs, and I'd already looked on MLS, and I'm trying to figure out who these builders are and whatnot, because these are builders that I was unfamiliar with. So I reached up and called the number, and Jay answered it. So I was actually quite surprised. It's not often you get the owner of the company answer his phone to talk to you about lots that he has for sale with these properties. So that is an absolute fact.
Awesome.
Yes, sir.
And let's go ahead and circle back. So who is the most memorable person you think you've ever met?
Man, that is tough. I would have to say my dad was the most memorable person I ever met.
That's good. Well, follow-up question. What's the best piece of advice he ever gave you?
The best piece of advice he ever gave me was do not argue. He said the only person dumber than a know-it-all is the person that tries to argue with him.
That is some good wisdom right there. Awesome. Well, Jay, we want to thank you very much for taking the time to join us on the show today, and thank all of our listeners for tuning in. Hopefully we were able to provide you with some good information, and again, tune into us every week. Leave us some reviews. Let us know what you want to hear about next. We love to keep providing great content for you guys. So thanks again for tuning into the Chappell Real Estate Show, and we will see you next week. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Chappell Real Estate Show. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend and leave us a review. Find us on social media at Chappell Realty Group and online at chappellrealtygroup.com. Until next time.